So, this morning, I was just on TikTok, and it's a pretty popular app. I'm pretty sure every one of you here knows that. And I came across this video, and it's of a girl who is trying to learn a language by herself. And first of all, whoa, 8 languages? Second of all, I knew she meant business and I knew she was serious when I saw her blasting some BTS or Blackpink when she was trying to learn Korean. Why is that? Good morning. I'm Hoi Eng. I'm 17 and I've been learning English since I was just 5 years old. But here's the thing. English class was actually the first class I've ever attended, way before I did with Khmer class. And it did take quite a while for me to be able to speak English somewhat fluently. But I wouldn't say time is the only factor in the process of our, language learning journey. It's within the content we consume every single day. A form of entertainment in which young people nowadays seems to love, called pop culture. I remember when I was just 5 years old, my mom bought me my first ever iPad. And from then on, I was basically the iPad kid growing up. I was glued to my iPad, sorry. And I started consuming a lot of these. And I'm pretty sure everyone here probably recognizes some of these videos from their childhood as well. And once I turned 7, I discovered my first ever English song. And of course, I'm pretty sure every one of you here have heard of it. It's called Roar by Katy Perry. And I would just sit in my room, on a random afternoon, watching the music video to Roar over and over again without fail. It was a really good childhood that I had. And once I turned 15, which was just about 2 years ago, I found myself becoming overly obsessed with 2000s American rom-com films, just like these. And just a few years prior, I'll say when I was about, 12, 13, I did something that would completely change everything. I downloaded TikTok. And I was just scrolling away 24/7, just nonstop. I was so obsessed with it, trying to learn about, different trends, keeping up with all of it as well. Now, this was when I realized how significant pop culture was in the development of our language skills. I realized that I could learn more in a 15-minute video of, people pulling pranks on each other more than I did at school. And all I have to do is just listen, watch, and enjoy. So imagine, after hundreds and thousands of videos every year that I consumed, I'll say I learned a thing or two. The thing is, within songs, movies, or videos, they uses words that are actually beneficial in humans' interaction every day, rather than just focusing on, vocabularies that are rarely used. And with pop culture, it blends us in education with a form of entertainment. So not only you'll learn new phrases, new slangs, new words, you'll get a good laugh out of it. And if any one of you here is just like me, you guys probably also hated listening exercise in class. I remember having to sit in class through a 5-minute lecture about the depths of the ocean or how a mechanical engineering program works and having to answer questions about it afterwards. But through pop culture, you'll get to experience real-life conversations, realistic topics that were being discussed, and sentence structures that were to be used. And of course, words, phrases, slangs will inevitably be used repeatedly, making viewers like me and you, get to understand wording in context better. And of course, with pop culture, it kind of teaches you something, humane, what is within us, what makes us human. But obviously, it comes with a teeny tiny bit of a problem. Relying on pop culture to learn a language meant that there would be no limitation like in traditional books. So, inappropriate words like, cursing that shouldn't have been used will be used in conversations to convey points. But to be honest, to me, I think it's those little things like cursing is what makes it even better. Okay, hear me out. My point is, we as human will only understand or know a small range of things when we are exposed to little things. And only when we are exposed to some form of, explicit things will we fully understand the extent of those particular words. And overall, just expanding our horizons in our language learning journey. Well, at least it did for me. And when we have a better understanding of those words, phrases or slangs, it can ultimately make you more sociable as you can now relate to what was being said or used in different sentences in conversations. But at what cost? Most people must be, quote unquote, chronically online to be able to fully immerse themselves into relatable situations or conversations. And I know it can be really tiring and exhausting keeping up with all the latest trends, all the latest dramas, the slangs, trying to find out what does this word mean? Like now what do people use this nowadays, It can be really exhausting. Which is why I like to raise up the fact that it is not for everybody. Some people like to sit and watch their videos and practice on their own, while some prefers a sit-down lesson with teachers in class with their classmates. So, like I've mentioned, you guys don't really have to like it, for it's not for everybody. Some of you may prefer to do something else. Basically, it's what works for you better, but with pop culture, it ultimately makes it easier. So, taking myself back to my younger self, I was obsessed with vloggers. And taking myself to my younger self again, watching 500 Days of Summers or Notting Hills on my phone, then listening to some Katy Perry or Why Don't We musics. Looking forward to another video from Seven Supergirls or Wasabi Production. Seeing another toy review from Evan 2 HD or Sis vs. Bro. I'm pretty sure every one of you here have heard one of them, at least. It is what quite literally raised me and shaped my English the way it is today. If I'm being honest, being immersed into American pop culture is equivalent to having an American family by your side. That way you'll get to practice English with them. Okay, I might be exaggerating. It's not like you can actually have conversation with them, but it's more so as you learn through repetitive actions at work, where you tend to get familiar with what was being used or what was being said again and again, bit by bit, until you fully understood what it meant. And what I found myself gaining from being fully immersed into American pop culture was I was able to have a better understanding of their cultural context in which their language was used. Now, this makes my ability to comprehend English more adaptable and practical. Now, I know wanting to learn a new language is no joke. It's a tough situation. It's hard for everyone. Sometimes it takes up to years and years on end for someone to be able to fully be fluent in a language. But when you do it right, and when you find the right technique to do it, well, preferably what works for you, I believe it is more possible and actually easier to be able to learn a new language. So instead of, taking 10 years to learn English, it would cut it off to around 5 years, let's just say that. I still owe my 5-year-old self an appreciation letter and a huge, huge hug for choosing to consume the content that raised me and what made me who I am today. And I'm really thankful that I decided to, out of curiosity, on a random day in my room, clicked on a video of a grown man with pink skirts and white tank top with a wig making a parody video to Call Me Maybe with his best friend. Now, and I'm pretty sure most of everyone here in the audience are parents, and I'd like to say end this speech by saying that parents, I know you guys are probably very worried about your kids, being too online, or it might potentially destroy their eyesight, or it could affect their grades or their study. It could be a waste of time, taking their time away from them doing productive things. And to that, I'd like to say it's okay to let your kid have, a bit of fun. And you never know when it could actually help them, just like it did for me. Well, my parents personally did try to stop me from that, but I wasn't quite that good of a kid, so but here I am today. So thanks, Mom. Okay, to really end this speech, I'd like to share a quote. A Chinese proverb actually. Sorry. This is a Chinese proverb that states to learn a language is to have one more window in which to look at the world. Thank you.